Welcome to one of the last sessions of the Northwest Met 2015 conference. I'd like to introduce my colleague from the University of Washington Tacoma campus, Becky Etheridge. I've known Becky now since probably 2000 when at LeConner, the Northwest Met then, and in 2004 she was the host to a wonderful conference that we had up at Tacoma. So Becky, thank you very much. We're going to enjoy your presentation.
Thank you. So, okay, it's not working. Welcome. So I'm here to talk about the effective support of student technology needs, or how I learned to love cross-campus collaboration. So as Doug mentioned, UWT hosted the Northwest Met conference in 2004. And that was it. For those of you that are a little shy about hosting a conference, it was great in that I didn't have to do a whole lot because my team members were doing quite a bit. So Bellingham Western took those pictures and created us a nice logo. And we were established in 1990 as part of the state of Washington's opportunity to meet place-bound learners. And they created five, I believe, branch campuses, 2 at UW and 3 at WSU. We're an urban campus. We're downtown. We're in an area that was the blighted area of Tacoma, where the prostitutes hung out. People didn't want to have the campus there when we first started. They wanted to have it closer to TCC. We started out as upper division, which is very significant because we later added freshmen, and so that we kind of did it upside down. Our learners were non-traditional adult learners, and so rather than getting used to freshmen and younger students, we were working with older students who were returning back to school, and they were place-bound and working, and so they were the students that you probably see a lot of these days. And now, this is our 25th year. We're quite large now. Our students are, we have traditional aged first-year students, but it's only about 11%. But we put a lot of energy in trying to support those students. Also, our sophomores, we have the transfer students are our largest population, and they're coming from 5 major feeder schools, community colleges. We added an EDD last year, and so we're moving into that area, and we have several master's degrees. We're not as unique because a lot of people have first generation, but we have 68% of our students are first generation, which means that they're coming without any idea of how a university works, or they're very practical. We have 3 generations of students because we still have those transfer students, and so we have a wide range of student needs going on, and the average age is 27, and we're by the joint base, so we now have 10% of veterans, and we're courting the veterans that have unique needs too. I was asked in February when I moved over from the Teaching and Learning Center, which was the tutoring center, back to academic technologies where I originally started. Well, actually I started in media services way back when, but was in academic technologies, is to create a cross-campus proposal for effective support of student technology needs. So on our campus, we have 3 units that are providing some kind of technology support to faculty and students. Academic technologies is doing primarily faculty-based, the library, and information technology. So my question was, when I was asked to do that, what does effective support of student technology needs look like when the students arrive with these very diverse needs, because we have those 3 generations, and they have different abilities, needs, and resources. So first thing I started out to do is assess really what was going on, because I knew from the tutoring center what was going on, that there were a lot of gaps, but I didn't know what had been going on the tech side of the world so much. And so I took a look at our winter survey, which asked students in their second quarter with us, and this was an undergraduate survey of various kind of satisfaction questions. Took an inventory of our campus technology support. And then I interviewed, and I'm still interviewing, staff and students from information technologies, library, and academic technologies. When I looked at the winter survey, a couple of things that stood out was most undergraduate survey takers felt they were well prepared for academic work. Well, if you talk to faculty and to staff, that is not what's going on. So that's kind of a high rating And we often talk about our students as underprepared because of their first generation coming from schools that are probably not quite as strong. And so, but it's significant that they saw themselves, 64% were completely prepared for the use of computers and technology. Because that tells me if they rated the other one so high, this is probably a little high too, and that's a little alarming. So this is IT's website, which has a bunch of different things that they do. And this is what students would go and look for if they're trying to figure out how to get support of any kind off of the campus. And what they provide is there's a help desk, computer labs, and this is a picture of the multimedia lab, printing, wireless, productivity software, which is significant because they provide Excel support, which we will mention later when we send people around campus in kind of circles trying to find somebody that can help with Excel. And that happens into the tutoring center too. And laptop and equipment checkout. The library is sited in a building, 2 buildings now, and they're kind of at stress because they don't have new staff, but they have these 2 buildings to support. They have a technology person, and in about 2 years ago when they did a rehab of the 2 buildings that this powerhouse and there was another building, they brought in the teaching and learning center, the tutoring center, and so it's supposed to become a learning commons, although we called it a learning and research commons. Academic technologies came over for a little bit to try to provide some student, I called it a technology tutor, technology mentor, but it didn't work out quite as well because it was, there was kind of a resistance from the library that we didn't really need that. They were, the tech person wasn't really seeing the problems that the people that were working more one-on-one with the students were. So they provide laptop checkout only in the building, lots of computers, and it's printing, and then they have the group study rooms, although we have a whole series of group study spaces on campus. Academic technologies is kind of interesting because we have 3 different websites, and none of them are kind of geared towards students, and you have to kind of dig to find what we do for students. But we're very lofty about, like, we're interested in supporting new pedagogy in a digital community of practice. And we're talking about the anytime, anywhere, every learner engagement. It's a great group. We're doing good work, but it's focused mostly around e-learning at this point. So e-learning and learning technologies. We are lucky in that we have the University of Washington's tools and resources. So we're connected to the Seattle campus. We call it the Montlake branch. And so we have access to Canvas, which is the 3-campus proposal, and then we have Catalyst tools, which are well developed. There's some training up there that our students don't necessarily use. We also, out of academic technologies, provide social and collaboration software for students to use. And one of my colleagues is teaching a digital learning tools course, a 2-credit course, that has been wildly successful. It's an online course, and it was meant to just support e-learning students to prepare them for the environment, but it's kind of expanded from there. So, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. So, what does your campus technology support look like?
We've got at BYU Idaho, there's a faculty technology center for supporting faculty, and then there's a student technology center in the library, and then in addition to that, the help desk that's there for students, and a call center.
Okay.
It's all staffed with that. And then the online also has their online support center for their online students.
Oops.
Oh, yeah.
A little slow.
All that stuff. What I said earlier.
Okay, here we have another.
We have 3 full-time positions that do support. There's the general Mac support, general Windows support, and then a help desk person. And then we've also got 6 student workers that set up and take down projectors and, go and help people turn on the screens and things like that so that they can teach.
Does anybody? Oh.
Yeah, so we have about 50 student employees that are spread around campus. We have a couple of what we're calling the zones. They're like kind of walk-in help desk kiosk areas. We do checkouts through those as well. And then there's the call center support for them. And then our group, Learning Technology Solutions, also supports students with more of the online learning environments, Blackboard and things of that nature.
What in your support makes it effective for students? Oftentimes the academic technologies areas are focused on the faculty, so how do you know that what you're doing for the students is effective? Yes?
So for us, I would say that it's at its most effective in our tech desk in the library, and we're a small campus, so we have a library. The other thing that worked strangely to that advantage was this sort of trickle-down effect of what happened with our campus center. Our campus center was remodeled, actually rebuilt completely 15 years ago. And when they did that, it's an effective student center on some levels, but on other levels for sort of smaller, intimate conversations. It went to really big ceilings and echoey and all this stuff, and it's hard for groups of students to really hang out there in a lot of ways. So a lot of that kind of activity moved to the library, especially to the front areas of the library. And so with all that student activity going into that building, having that tech desk there meets the students where they are, especially when they're studying.
Just-in-time support.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that makes it effective for our students is that our general Mac and Windows support guys are able to do whatever they want to. We don't really restrict them and how much service they can provide. So they'll swap out a hard drive, or clean off a student's computer, or run a disk utility for them, or whatever. And it's just it's really easy and free for the students, and they love that.
So we do a satisfaction survey on most of our interactions. A certain percent of them receive satisfaction surveys, so we're able to kind of temperature check how we're doing with support that way. I think that the kiosk, or like the zones where the walk-in support is, has been pretty successful for students. We offer a lot of services too. It's just kind of whatever is needed. Virus removal, malware removal, things like that, which have been pretty successful.
So one of the other things we're doing, I'm from Boise State also, is our library is getting more involved in more like makerspace kinds of environments for students to do more sophisticated. They've got the Adobe Creative Suite. They have the 3D printers, some more kind of cutting edge technology. So that's in the works right now. They're building some pretty innovative new spaces there for students to do that. And they do a lot of the equipment checkout, as well as the Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, and trying to be kind of leading edge in some cases.
Yeah. Cool. Do any of you in your support provide support for a student that's getting stuck with Excel in the middle of an assignment? Do you find that your students don't know Excel at all, or?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They don't know Excel.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's been my observation too. It's just not our students.
Our faculty don't know Excel either, as far as I can
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
Unless it's accounting.
Yeah, unless it's like they're teaching a spreadsheets class.
So I took a look at technology's role in learning, because academic technologies provide support for learning technologies. And there was a new study from 2005, technology's role in learning at a commuter campus, the student's perspective. And students found that it increased ease of access and resources and administrative tasks, so they're very practical, just like faculty. Increased productivity and efficiency in completing tasks. So they're not so much thinking about the learning tools within, but just how to get their work done. This same study found that 94 of the respondents believe that technology has the potential to benefit learning. And 85% thought the technology is central to their academic success. So we see more and more technology being infused into the classrooms, and so it's not a surprise that this number should go up with time. Also found the critical role of digital literacy, which was a theme that I discovered too. And the definition across the researchers, it lacks any kind of consistency or clarity, and several researchers mention that, that there isn't a clear definition. And students need new skills to function effectively in these digital environments. Our environments are getting more and more rapidly digital. So I also did interviews to folks in campus, and I'm still doing them. And I had three questions that I was after. So what's working well across campus? And it was interesting. People didn't talk so much about what was working well. People always go right to where the problems are. So I asked if, dream, if we had additional resources and money was not any limitation or space was a limitation, what would innovative cross-campus student technology support look like? And then more personal is like, what can my department be doing to better support students? So the current state, the theme that kept coming up is our students had very differing abilities, needs, and resources, which we kind of knew anecdotally. But there was also talk about the laptop, tablet, smartphones, and the fact that some of our students didn't have anything. So you would see, like in this picture on the left, this is a classroom. So we've got a couple of laptops, somebody's using a tablet, and somebody's using their phone for what's going on in the classroom. In the Learning Commons, you would see students with 2 to 3, maybe even 4 computers going on at one time. We had a few kiosks set up with double monitors, but they would bring their laptop, or you would see students with multiple laptops when they were doing collaboration work. In my interviews, so this was the director of the library, said that students need assistance with social media, issues of privacy, social presence, Facebook, learning technologies, support for the tools that the faculty are asking students to use. So many people on campus feel that the faculty should be teaching those tools, but our faculty aren't teaching those tools. Some are very comfortable with the digital tools, and many are not. We're using Google products like many of you, and that's an older, I talked to our tech person in the library, he's like, oh, that's 10 years old. They should, they need to move on, They should know that stuff by now. And then, of course, copyright and plagiarism, given that they're working and creating a lot more in the digital environments. I talked to Academic Technologies has 2 technology mentors, one that's from a communication program, one that's from a computer services program. And they really they were very positive, much more positive than the staff. They liked the accessible labs. They liked that the labs were open on weekends. One of them was in a program that required special software, and liked that there was a lab tutor that was there helping them with their assignments. They liked that there was dual Mac and PC environment. Loved Adobe Suite. That was our communication major, and they really liked the Learning and Research Commons. It's a popular study space for students. It's almost a little too popular. So as I talked to people, I was asking myself, where is the gap between what we're providing and what we would like to be, where we would like to be? And so it's the range. It just keeps coming back to the range of student technology abilities. The nursing students who are older students who are working in the profession, they're not using technology or computers so much in their work. They would proudly come into the library and state, I'm computer illiterate, and we're an environment that has nothing really to give them for that. The faculty are trying their best, but there was, and then they also, one of the quotes was, students should come in with technology literacy, but I see students who don't know how to use Excel. And the same person said, we shouldn't even allow them in the university if they don't know, which was a little extreme, but he wanted to see people being taught big data rather than, more basic computer literacy. But like in many areas on campus, you meet your students where they're at, and that's why I spent some time talking about who our students are. Our environment, we have those 3 units, we need a more seamless environment. It was mentioned in some of the interviews that we're very territorial, some of the folks, and it's very common between just these 3. We're a small campus. People don't know what's going on in the other unit. When I was trying to survey the resources, I knew there would be web pages there that had some resources for people, like our multimedia lab. There's some stuff. I could not find it. I would spend like 10 minutes, and I knew it was there, to find where that website was that had that. So it's difficult to know what resources and help is available. You know, we have the computer labs, the help desk is located actually in the computer lab, but the help desk is manned by students who are not getting a lot of training about how to support the learning technologies, so there's a little bit of a gap there. And then we also need somebody kind of advocating for student technology needs, to talk about best practices, to support student use of technology, to advise faculty in the classroom, maybe go into the classrooms and support the classroom, and to understand the gaps a little bit better. So as I thought about that third question, I thought, what is possible? What is a desired state? And you can see Northwest Med is on my group of people that I am curious what you guys think. So I've been asking the 3 technology groups, been looking at the research, and for you. So one of the desired states we want to have is to provide student learners with a seamless technology environment and support that is responsive to their just-in-time needs. So we've tried, like many people, to do workshops. Nobody shows up. We do it for faculty. We do it for students. You know, the workshops don't really work. I like workshops, but the students don't have time because they're commuter students. But we also need to communicate to students what learning technology needs are and how to use them appropriately. So, you know, what are the tools that we have? They don't even know where to go, really. There's a help desk, and there's been stories that have, well, let's Google it and see what the answer is to that. We also would like, the course that Academic Technologies has been teaching has been wildly successful, but we want to integrate that more into our work. So we want to promote and support digital literacy for UWT students by providing multiple just-in-time opportunities, not the just one. We have these multiple spaces around campus, and to make sure that there's opportunities, that we're using the web a little bit more appropriately for them to solve their problems and learn more. And then to create a position, as we talked about before. So when we talk about literacy skills, we talk about fluency even, you know, which is kind of a bold, you know, claim, since we have people that say that they're computer illiterate. But I think it's nice to kind of set the bar high and to go to want to see them do more and let them know how they can learn, and let them learn at their own pace. So this is one definition of digital literacy skills, where the safety and the privacy, finding and evaluating and applying information, using the tools, showcasing achievements. So you come to Anna's e-portfolio, awareness and management of digital identity. Our technology mentors are doing some of that. Collaborate. They need to know how to collaborate a little bit more successfully. Our EDD students, they've just been kind of thrown out there to collaborate. It's they meet once a month, and so then they collaborate, and they have to find their own tools. And some of them have been having struggles figuring that out, how to collaborate across areas. So it's your turn. What is possible? Well, if you had a desired state, what would you do?
I'm Daniel Gold from Boise State, and I think one of the things that frustrates me a little bit is when I look at the way we support students or the way we support even our faculty, is that we don't necessarily always use the information that we have to be able to better plan interventions around when they will potentially run into trouble with technology. For instance, if I know they're first-time students who are enrolled in an accounting class, perhaps that's a great time for us to reach out to them and explain to them that there is available, you know, Excel tutoring. So I think planning or mapping out that journey, understanding where those intervention points may exist, and then taking appropriate actions to position just-in-time training or support for them would be good.
I think that's smart, because we've revised our orientation, and so there's no longer like a spiel about IT resources, how to sign up for my UW and such. And so there's students that don't even have their email set up when they, 5th week in the class, you know, and they're trying to figure out how to do something. And so when I've talked to the orientation group, they said, well, it's all about just-in-time needs. And so we're trying to adapt to that. You know, how do we adapt to that? It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, at Portland State, we had a situation where additional resources were available, but those resources got earmarked in our academic affairs office to go towards faculty support. And I think what they're kind of using the chicken and egg concept here, in that, well, if we engage our faculty, raise the bar for them, get them more involved with technology, the students will do that. Maybe we're doing things in phases. Yeah.
Well, I did find in
What's
the
that? Trickle-down fluency.
Yeah.
trickle-down fluency, I like that.
Good comment.
I did find in the literature that there's people that actually state that the faculty, they need help. You know, we're here where we're at right now. Maybe down the road they'll be able to do that, but our faculty aren't as literate as we would like them to be either.
One other thing that, just from a support team perspective, you know, we've got at Boise State, we have our kind of our tier 1, you know, general help desk support queues, and then those guys usually working on the zone 2. But then we have our tier 2 support, and I think that I wish there was a little bit more of like a generalizing specialist. You know, that they had sort of things that they were good at, whether it be Blackboard or Excel or, you know, productivity software, Adobe Creative software, so that you had the ability to you know and point resources in the direction of the person who's going to be best prepared to help them with maybe a further depth of knowledge. Right now, that's sort of tribal. You know,
Yeah.
I know Jim is really good at that, so I'm going to send it that direction, but there's no real kind of formalized way around that. And from our perspective, not only supporting the students and the faculty, but also providing training for the tier 1 and tier 2 support agents on the
Right.
learning technologies, having the ability to work closely with certain groups to
Right.
build that skill set would be really great.
I would agree. Oh,
One of our biggest issues is just communication. How do we communicate with students? How do we communicate with faculty? Especially when, just as you said, the student hasn't set up their email 5 weeks into the term. So even when we do have resources that are available to them, they don't know of their existence. And for faculty, it can often be the same thing. When the only method that we have, at least for communicating training options, or whenever there are any major changes that we're going about, is through email. We can send out an email for 5 years telling them we're not supporting VHS, and then guaranteed 20 people will show up saying, "Hey, why can't I play VHS in my classroom?"
You can check out a player from EM and set it up yourself. Go to eBay.
Go to the museum. So my desired state is really tight synergy between what's happening in the academic classes and what's happening with the technology support. So and we're doing some of this already, where I, for example, will come into a class and do 20 or 30 minutes on Keynote or PowerPoint and help the students create a modern, presentation with transitions and, neat stuff going on. But you mentioned Excel, which is useful in lots of different disciplines. I would really like to have, so we've got this overall set of competencies that we want our students to have. They're going to gain this in this project in this class. We're going to go and support that. This other class is going to have a project that uses this tool. We'll go and support that. And then by the time they sort of get through all of these things, we've got a really well-rounded technology practitioner. So.
Okay, so let me build off that. The thing that is tricky at Whitman, and I suspect is tricky all over the place, is IT and the library, depending on the organization, have taken on that mantle. How are we going to get the Excel here, the video editing over here, how do you search well online over here? What's missing in many cases is an institutional understanding of how deeply woven in that really needs to be. I listen to our librarians all the time say, well, if only we could have information literacy scattered throughout and it's just not happening. And I listened to one of our geology profs stood up at a meeting a few months ago and said, well, we need to have embedded throughout our curriculum a deeper understanding of how the environment is being affected. There are these competing interests in what should be deeply embedded. IT and library things are one of them. So it's hard to know how to really advance that agenda at an institutional level. So that's a big challenge.
I would agree.
We had in a faculty assembly, faculty stand up, and they were talking about the core curriculum, like what are the core outcomes that we want all students to have, and someone suggested technological competency, and it was someone stood up and like really just went off, the technology isn't important and students don't need to understand it and it changes too much for us to call this a core competency, and they weren't alone, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and our faculty would, many of them would call it a technical school kind of competency, not something at the university. And then we have folks, you know, the technology folks on campus, that some of them think, well, you know, they should have those before they even come to us. Well, they're not getting that before they come to us.
I think part of the solution is I liked what you had for your definition of digital fluency, because that really gets at the why statement
Yeah.
that I think everybody could get behind. So just really kind of emphasizing that in any of your communication, instead of focusing just on the what and the how,
Yeah.
the how-to pieces and what technology kind of stuff, but why is this important? Why do you
Right.
need to understand your digital identity and data management and things like that, you know, in the
Right.
world that we live in today?
Well, I know for myself, when I took my first computer class, because they brought one computer into the work area I was in, the thing I liked the most about that course was that they taught word processing or spreadsheets. Sure, you were using a tool, but you understood why it was important, and they had these modules where you learned the background about it, and so then you're just, that what it all of those tools would have somewhat, and it would change over time, and it just really has served me well to think in that way about tools, technology tools. I'm not afraid of them because I have kind of a conceptual understanding of what's going on. And it'll keep changing, but it makes you not afraid. So one of the textbook vendors said, made the statement, and I liked this, that mobile learning with smartphones and apps will continue to increase over the next 5 years. And so we will see lots of growth in the use of technology in the classroom, student needs, you know, all over the place. We've been creating more spaces where students can gather and, you know, meet with others, both socially and also study spaces, because there's that tension of study, you know, I want to study in the, you know, like without the social versus people that want to collaborate, and, you know, there's a lot of assignments around collaboration, so those kinds of spaces. And space was mentioned before, how important it is, and that's an interest of mine too, is because our some of our, like our computer lab right now, one of them is very old-fashioned, and one of the technology people said that's been the same lab since 1995. You know, it's just strips. I went in there briefly, and I kind of had to walk out really quickly because I was so depressed, because it was just so, you know, and nobody was in there. You know, they were over in the Learning and Research Commons or over in the Multimedia Lab, which has more comfortable seating and stuff, but it was just really, you know, it's an underutilized space. The help desk is there, and so that would be a good place for students to gather if it was a more robust, fun space to work in. And then, you know, we just need to remember it's all about student learning. You know, we want to see them graduate and go off into the work world, you know, knowing more than what they came in with, you know, and feeling confident with technology and with their digital literacy. Thank
Any
you.
questions for Becky at all? I've got a couple.
Okay.
So, yeah. So your comment you made, trickle down fluency. You know, the thing about leadership in higher education is that good technology plans and good strategies don't happen by accident. We all know that. But what I have found at our university and some of the other schools that I've looked at over the years is that the administrations want to have that one bullet that kind of does this, then does this, then does that, and does the other thing, not too unlike the Wolf Vision product we saw last night. I think that product will probably also take out my garbage every Thursday night. It just seems to me that administration, higher level of administrations at our universities and colleges need to be responsive to good technology plans and then fund them. Because when you put up the slide about what would you do to help with this, my first thought on my campus is, we have to create a student support center a designated space on our campus, which is difficult, with the funding to put all the necessary technology in it. We've had plans like that over the past, but do we want to get rid of the longtime bowling alley in the basement? No, we don't want to do that. Where do we go? And then if we pick this location, yeah, that's a bad spot because that building's going to get renovated in 3 years. Why make a fiscal investment in that? So that's some of the things that we're struggling with. And it's splintered, it's scattered. Student resources for technology are kind of a little bit everywhere. And what I'm finding is if we as IT, in my world or the library, don't address it, the colleges will have resources and attempt to address it themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, all the way in the back.
Oh my, okay.
Yay.
I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about your peer mentoring program. I'm not sure if I missed that in the beginning. How many students do you have? How do you train them? Because I think if there's going to be a lot of change at my university, it's going to be peer driven because we have one person who is the head of library technology and that's it. So as far as our training workforce, I think it's going to be students.
Yeah. And our students like peer mentors quite a bit. When you look kind of globally across the campus, there are numerous peer mentor programs that are really unclear from a larger picture what's going on in those different ones. In academic technologies, we have 2 student peer mentors that are providing some, I'm not even really clear, and I'm in the department. Kind of new in the department, but I keep asking questions. But they seem to be working on digital literacy skills and helping students and looking for ways to reach out to Canvas and to help students with Canvas, if they have Canvas questions. We have peer tutors, but they don't have the skills to, oftentimes on the technology, we've run into some problems where a nursing class had a database assignment and the tutor, a math tutor, just pretty much did it, set it up, and then he was off for a couple of days. And then people are running around trying to figure out what he did, and the student didn't know at all. But coming back to your question, the peer mentors, I don't know if we do enough training for them. Certainly the technology support ones, I'm not seeing it. They either come in a little strong or they don't have customer service skills or like me, it's like I'm having a hard time figuring out who does what because the web doesn't really reflect that and things are we're not utilizing the web very well. And that's one thing that my boss and I've talked about is maybe just going ahead and making an interface, a campus interface of the tech, just do it. Don't ask for permission, just go out there and make an interface that tells students where all the different places are, and then go to the campus webmaster and ask him if he'll put it up, which in our case, he probably would. But I don't have an answer for that, but you're right, it's good. The peer mentors will play an important role, and it's important for them to develop those kinds of work skills by helping others. Other comments?
I mentioned before, kind of talking about, I think I wish we were a little bit better prepared or a little bit more responsive to where students are in their life cycle from a learning perspective and what kind of the motivations are the classes they're enrolled in and how that impacts what they need from a technology perspective. So I think we all probably struggle with limited resources. I'm curious if, at your school or if any other schools, people are doing any targeting, like based on these criteria or these factors that we understand about you as a student, where you are in your life cycle, what you're enrolled in. We're finding opportunities to engage. Are you doing any of that today?
Not so much. We do things with the curriculum where somebody will go in, work with the faculty and go into the course, but not as frequently as we probably should be. And I'm thinking specifically of nursing and maybe environmental science who use a lot of technology, but the students aren't always ready for it, especially with underprepared students. I don't know that we target. The other thing that kind of is relevant to our story is that we have and this is probably true to your story, we have retention issues with the younger students. And so people are scrambling around looking for interventions of how can we engage them, so if we could engage them with technology a little better, that might be, and to open that world of what they already know and kind of expand it. But yeah, targeting and the attention. We've talked about where do students pick up this information? Should it be in a very general thing where they would learn about Excel before they get into the assignment, the stress of trying to do an assignment, or is it completely curricular, or discipline specific, once they get to upper division? But we haven't really targeted them, and maybe it's a different prong solution for the different groups. Is what are the ways that we could provide, creating a grid, and what are the ways that we could provide those different groups, because it just varies.
Do you think there would be any possibility at all of you had the slide about the students who don't have devices at all of any kind? I assume they're the ones that are your heavy users of your computer labs that you've got on campus. Is there any plan or thought that there's some way to get devices in their hands and kind of, okay, you want this device, you have to go through a digital literacy program of some kind? I mean, it seems to me that we have to kind of give them a little bit of a nudge push.
An opportunity.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
get
that's
something
an
like that
interesting
going.
one.
Yeah.
I remember way back in the day, Evergreen State College had a lot of checkout equipment for different courses, and they would have competency tests that you would have to take. They'd hand you a little brochure, and you'd sit and study it so you knew how to do, work it. It was from a functional kind of like, how do you turn on the video camera? And, it was really valuable for the students. Take an art class, you can check out a slide projector in those days, and check out the slides and, put your presentation together. It's different now, but same kind of thing.
All right, well, Becky, thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you all.